Okay.
All right, well, welcome for returning back after lunch. Hopefully you all had a wonderful lunch. I know we did. We got pizza and wings and salad from Angela's, so that was very exciting. Hopefully some of you are able to use some of your local restaurants to support during this first virtual summit. This is the Talent Pipeline and Population Recovery Strategy Summit that Commerce Chenango is hosting today. And so we are back to our third of our breakout sessions. And if you were looking for the future candidate and talent sourcing beyond the pandemic, you were in the right spot. If you were looking to barriers to employment and transportation, that's a different session. So just go back to your agenda and find that correct link, but we're happy to have you here. We expect some people may be coming on late as well as they're returning back from lunch or still eating, which is fine. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. So with us today, we have Tara Bradley and Andy Gulata, HR Talent Acquisition Specialist at Preferred Mutual Insurance Company. And just to note, Preferred Mutual is our supporting sponsor for today's event, and it would not have been possible without the support of our sponsors. Because of our sponsors that we were able to get for today, we were able to offer today's sessions complimentary and free and open to anybody. So we really appreciate their support. I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. Recruiting post-pandemic, I think, is something everybody is struggling with a little bit. So I'm excited to hear what Preferred Mutual is doing. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to them. And thank you, Tara and Andy, for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. And we're very happy to be here, and we're very proud sponsors. And we're celebrating our 125th anniversary this year. So we're very excited to be celebrating that. So we are here to talk about kind of the future candidate and talent sourcing beyond the pandemic. And before we actually get started with the PowerPoint, I'd love to hear more about some of our audience members and have you introduce yourselves, what your job title is, and then maybe one thing that you're looking to kind of get out of this presentation. I would love to kind of know where your job title is. If you're an HR professional, if you're a job seeker, if you're a business owner, and we want to hear more from you. So if one person here would not mind, I can see the participants here at the top. And again, my name is Andy Gulata. So, and Tara Bradley is joining. We're both, like Carrie said, we're talent acquisition specialists. And why don't we kick it off? I see here, I'm just going to kind of pick on somebody. Hope you don't mind. Janet, since you were the first one on my screen, would you just mind introducing yourself, like I said, job title, and just kind of what you're hoping to learn from us today?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jen Latham. I'm the Director of Instructional Support Services at DCMO BOCES. And I think I'm probably here for the same reason everybody else is here. We have pages and pages of openings in BOCES right now that for all sorts of jobs and all sorts of backgrounds that we are having a lot of trouble filling.
Okay. And now with trouble filling those, is that just because you're unable to get people to actually come physically into an office? Like, what do you see as the challenge for trouble filling those positions?
Oh man, I'm the wrong person to ask that. I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, no, that's all right. Okay. And I will pass it over to the next person on my screen here, Elizabeth. Hi.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Monaco. I'm the Executive Director of the Chenango United Way. And to be honest, I'm in this session because we fund the other session. So I'm really familiar with the Get There Connected program. And so I just felt that this program would be better for me to listen to. A majority of the funds that we raise come from employees and in work campaigns. And we do see a lot of turnover. So I'm just curious to hear more about, employee churn and why that happens. And so on the fundraising side, I'm just curious about that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Sure. Welcome. All right, Megan.
Hello, I'm the Director of Human Resources at Blue Ox Energy here in Oxford, New York. We have a lot of different types of positions that we hire for. Right now, we're in a very fortunate place where our business has grown a lot over the last couple of years. So we have openings for CDL drivers and for HVAC technicians. And probably our biggest hurdle right now is how do we attract experienced workers. We've had a little, we've seen our turnover trends are mostly with, employees that are new to the workforce. To keep up with our business needs, we're looking for someone to come in with experience, not that we're not open to kind of growing them through, which we do. And I think we do a great job at, but how to attract someone who's already maybe comfortable in a position and getting them to look at Blue Ox's way and maybe what we can bring to the table, to fulfill some of the other things that they may be looking for. I know some of the other sessions today have talked a little bit about that, whether it's quality of life or just company culture. And I know we spoke a little bit too earlier about how, it's just not as easy as putting a listing on Indeed.com anymore. So just trying to get ideas to think outside of the box and maybe hear some of the other experiences from other companies, definitely.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, who else do we have on our call? We have, I'm just going to go down the line here. Don, would you mind sharing?
Not at all. Hi, I'm Don Brown. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at Chobani. So I'm not in the hiring part of the company, but I want to be immersed in the community. I'm curious what's going on. And I know that it seems to be across the board hiring in our area and even farther. So yeah, just excited to kind of hear what's going on and just join in.
Okay. And you said you're with Chobani. Well, I'm seeing the Chobani creamer right next to you.
Oh, is that what I have here in the back? How did that get in the shop?
How did that happen?
Look at that product placement.
Right? I love it.
No, yeah, I really needed it. It was my lunch break, so I had my new cold brew. And I'm not a coffee drinker, but I am now. So I didn't even know I had it in the background. But thanks.
Wow, that stuff must be good.
It's amazing.
It's very good. That is my favorite coffee creamer. Okay, well, thank you for that. And who else do we have here? And we have a couple more people. Audrey Robinson.
She's not going to like that.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Audrey works here. She's our director of.
Oh,
gotcha.
I thought that name sounded familiar. Okay. Right.
And Joanna
okay.
Our economic development assistant. I don't know if she wants to say anything, but yeah.
Okay.
For director of communications, Audrey does not like to talk on the screen.
Okay. Gotcha. And Joanna,
I'm here also... I'm just here to listen. I'm interested in this. How you keep your employees, how you retain them, how we've got a small staff here, so we don't have much choice. We're here for the long haul.
Yep.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I don't know if Joanna, if she's available.
I don't know if you can you guys hear me? Sorry, I'm gonna put my headphones in. I have you on speaker. So I'm just interested because I am the economic development assistant and grant writer. And so I meet with lots of individuals for a variety of economic development and business growth needs, and just seeing what challenges are facing employees to hiring, retaining, recruiting, and ways to do those things. So when somebody who is starting a new business or hoping to expand comes to me, I can give them insight and solid resources, whether it's they're hiring a few entry-level positions or looking to fill a whole warehouse. So here to learn.
Okay. Well, excellent. Thank you so much, everybody, for telling us a little bit about, what you're hoping to get out of this presentation that helps us. And certainly after this presentation, If there's any sort of materials that we can share, we can always send them to Carrie and Mary, and they can distribute those materials after this discussion. But let me just share my screen here. Bear with me for 1 second. That way I can get our presentation up. And share. And I just want to make sure, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So thank you again so much for sharing, you know, some of the reasons why you're here today, some of those challenges that we're facing. It's kind of a scary time that we're in. We're all facing lots of challenges, and we feel like our lives have just been completely flipped upside down with this pandemic. And throughout the recruitment process, we have been hiring throughout this entire time. We did not actually put any really positions on hold. And we have been hiring people all virtually. We've been doing virtual HR screens, hiring manager screens, utilizing WebEx. We had been doing everything virtually. And I got to say, it was a little scary at first, and people had a lot of fears. So we're hoping we can kind of share what we've been hearing, what we've been seeing, and hopefully help you throughout this process. So here, candidate desires. So like I said, what we have been hearing from candidates, it's very, very different. And I'm actually going to pass this over to Tara and to talk about kind of what the 2021 candidate looks like, and even the future candidate, what that's going to look like.
Yeah. So, you know, we have always struggled recruiting in this area. We are, you know, very geographically challenged. So it's always been tricky to try to entice people to come to this neck of the woods, in all honesty, particularly for the skills that we're looking for. So things have changed a lot really in the last year. We are hearing from candidates, many of whom have been laid off. So their first you know, question is, I want to look for a company that has stability, that has financial stability, that is founded, that is not going to close their doors tomorrow. So we are attractive to people because we've been in business for 125 years. So we've made really good investments, and we're really, you know, we are very financially stable. So this is a good thing. We also have really old-fashioned, lovely bonuses and pensions. I mean, we still do a cash balance pension plan, which many companies tend to not do anymore. So we're hearing from candidates that this is, you know, important to them. They're interested in this. They want long-term employment. We are hearing more. We're getting more interest really from contractors, consultants who were long-term consultants who now, I think, have been during this for long-term stable employment. We're also hearing about people looking to have a better work-life balance. I mean, this has changed all of our lives. We're dealing with daycare issues. People need flexibility more than ever before. People need adequate healthcare. Because we offer healthcare on day one. This is really attractive to people who want that and don't want a gap in their health insurance. So that's a big deal. Offering flexible work options. We used to be a pretty traditional company. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, nearly everybody drove into New Berlin, worked here Monday through Friday, very traditional hours. And it didn't matter if it was like, you know, if we had a massive snowstorm, we kind of expected people to get themselves to New Berlin. I think those days are over. I don't think we're ever going to, you know, demand everybody sits in the office anymore 9 to 5. I think this pandemic has forever changed the workforce. And if we want to keep and retain really good talent, we've got to be really flexible. So people who are doing their job really well from home and are thriving, we'd be kind of crazy to ask them to come into the office 5 days a week again, I think. But we're in this position that we're able to offer remote work. Some of the other local employers, some of you on the call might not have that type of flexibility. You might have to have people in person. And so if you're not able to offer remote positions, you know, I think it might be, I'm thinking about the HVAC, the kind of tradespeople that you're looking for. There's such a gap in that skill set. I think the average plumber and electrician is like 55 years old. Young kids are not going into that field for whatever reason, and they really should, because it can be really lucrative. but I think there needs to be some sort of, marketing campaign to get young kids to go into trades, or perhaps try to recruit downstaters who want to get out of the city, who want to get away from the hustle and bustle, who want, to get a less expensive house up here. You might have some luck there, trying to encourage people from downstate to move up here to this beautiful community. They can get way more bang for their buck. And there's such a need for tradespeople right now. I know you talked about retaining, somebody else talked about how to retain people. We have spent a lot of time polling our employees, having conversations, asking people what they want. And every single time we keep hearing the words flexibility. This seems to be the name of the game. So as we start to re-enter our workforce and physically go back to our brick and mortar in New Berlin, we are asking people to just come back 2 days a week. And even with that, we're offering, even more flexibility. If they have daycare issues or they still can't swing it, it's not mandatory. So this is not something I could have imagined us doing several years ago. We would not have been this flexible, but we really have to be now. And that is how we're keeping our really good talent, by letting people kind of choose work hours in some cases, worrying about the bottom line, measuring output no matter if they sit 5 minutes down the road or 500 miles away, getting more comfortable with remote tools, training our leaders on how to manage remotely, how to keep people connected. So we've all kind of done this on the fly in this past year, but I think this remote workforce is probably not going anywhere. And maybe you've noticed the other day, Google, even as an example, not long ago said they were going to bring everybody back to all their brick and mortars, and they've actually, reversed that decision and said they're going to offer more flexibility, because this is what the modern workforce seems to be asking for. So that's what we've been working on. And we also recognize too that the pandemic has made people look at things in a different perspective. Companies that did not treat their people well during the pandemic are kind of paying for it right now. We are seeing a lot of people quit positions at other companies who have not been there for their employees during the pandemic. So I'm happy to say, I feel like we did a pretty good job there in that space. We had very honest communication with everybody. We tried to stay connected, right? We were sending home like gift cards for people to buy takeout dinner, and sending them cell phone chargers, and offering virtual yoga during the day. I mean, these are things that an old school insurance company in New Berlin would never have done a couple of years ago. So we're embracing this new virtual world, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Does anyone have any questions on anything that I just talked about, or we could share some success stories, or any specific challenge you have right now that maybe we can give you some advice on?
Maybe a good thing to cover is maybe how you're taking what you learned during COVID and implementing it in the future. Like, is this a short-term thing? Like I think earlier we talked in one of our earlier sessions, we talked about it totally changed the dynamic and how they're recruiting and the remote worker, and even having, quality of life job descriptions was talked about during our open plenary session. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually sat on a task force to discuss just this. What will this look like post-COVID? Because, when this first hit, we were all kind of in a reactionary state. We had to figure this out. We were set up already. We were actually in a pretty good position to work virtually. So as a company, we've always had virtual desktops. Most of us had laptops ready to go. If there was inclement weather or some sort of disaster happened, we were kind of ready to go. But then when COVID happened, it wasn't just the few departments who were used to doing this, but everybody had to move to 100% virtual. And all along, we kept thinking, this will be so temporary. It'll be so temporary. I mean, I remember that first day, I didn't even bring home my big monitor. I brought home like a little laptop thinking, we'll be back in 2 weeks. And then, of course, as we know, we've been here for a long time, much longer than we all thought. So as the months went on, we started to realize, wow, this is not going to be that temporary. And we started to do some research, and we started to form committees to see what people wanted. And we quickly learned that this is likely going to stay. Some people do miss the human interaction. So maybe we do a hybrid approach for some people. But I don't think we will ever ask anybody to come back to the office full time anymore. It also made us take a look at what are we going to do with brick and mortar locations. You know, we have our flagship office, obviously in New Berlin. We're very dedicated to the local community. We've been there forever. So likely we won't, you know, get rid of that office. But we did have an office in Albany, in Latham, which we are closing because we're just not using it enough. And so likely our model will be more and more people working from home-based offices all over the Northeast. It's probably going to look like that. Or maybe we do little pop-up, you know, or satellite offices somewhere. And we're really only going to ask our employees to come in if there's a purpose for it. We don't want to ask people to travel in and deal with these crazy commutes just to sit in a cubicle when they can do that at home. So I think we'll have less, you know, in-person stuff in New Berlin, but when we do, we're going to make it really worth it for them. We're going to do like really cool trainings or, you know, employee engagement efforts, not just to come to an office to sit in a cubicle when you can do that somewhere else. So yeah, I think, you know, it has also changed the caliber of candidate that we can get. We are not limited by geography. And in our world, unfortunately, we don't have enough people locally who have the skills that we need. So this has changed the culture tremendously. Yeah.
So do you have any positions that are, I'm looking at who's on the call, and we've had a few other people join. So we have some people on who are from manufacturing. We have healthcare, Melissa Sagnaro is here from UHS, Chenango Memorial Hospital. I see Chobani, I see Amphenol. They're, you know, they have a workforce that can't work from home. And that sort of changes, you know, does it become an issue of like fairness? Like, well, how come they can work from home and I can't? And, you know, maybe some of them might want to share some of the struggles that they've had, but do you have people within your company that really cannot work from home and that causes an issue with your employees, or is that not really a factor for you?
And that used to be the mindset, which is why, you know, we always struggled with this idea of a remote workforce. You know, we didn't have a sort of a standardized, you know, like procedure for this. And it really did depend on the position that you had. And then that's what happens, right? People say, well, why do I have to drive here? And that person doesn't. Really though, all in all, the only department where it's tricky to work from home would be our customer service folks, because they are receiving payment, and that's hard to do home. There's a lot of regulations surrounding that. But for the most part, you know, almost all of our employees do have the capability of working remotely. You know, we're struggling with that, honestly, as a company right now, to come up with a plan, like who is allowed to work remotely, who can and can't work remotely. Likely we'll be giving more flexibility than we've ever done before. And it used to be all over the place. We had some departments that would allow it. We had some leaders that were comfortable with remote work and others weren't. Everybody's had to figure it out by now, so we can't use that as an excuse anymore. But I think likely it will be, we're going to give a little more flexibility to our employees than we ever did before. So yeah, I think it'll be a hybrid, some type of hybrid model.
Yeah. And to expand on that, we have probably just one other department that does come on, which is really our facility workers, along with our mailroom and distribution, just because they have to be there in order to get the mail in and out. Insurance, there's a lot of paperwork, very highly regulated. So a lot of things that we physically have to send out. So those are really the only type of positions they've had to be there this entire time. And we make sure that we follow the CDC guidelines to a T, so that way people feel comfortable coming into the office. Because we also, that's another thing, we want to make sure that's a huge thing that people are talking about. They want to feel comfortable if they do have to go back into an office setting. They don't want to feel like they're being pushed and like people are being unsafe. They want that sort of flexibility. It's not that, like Tara was saying, it's not that traditional kind of 9 to 5 sort of schedule. Daycare, after school care, a lot of different places have canceled a lot of that after school care. So we're having to be very flexible with people's schedules. We can't say, okay, well, you have to be here until 5 o'clock. And that's the key to understanding your workforce, keeping them engaged, making them feel like that's such a big word. You want to make them feel supported. and feel engaged with their work. So right now we've rolled out a whole onboarding program to understand how people are feeling, what their thoughts are. It's for new employees. We just did it this year. We actually just rolled it out to some new hires last week, this morning. And especially the transition of going from the pre-pandemic world to now the pandemic world, it's so different. There's so many different challenges and personal and professional challenges that everybody's facing. It's much more complex. So managers are having to connect with their employees more to understand their situations, to give them that supportive, kind of almost like nurturing them. It's not so much, okay, this is your schedule, you're going to have to kind of like figure it out. Really, we're having to provide that support. That's a, like I said, key word, making them feel supported, making them feel engaged, making them feel encouraged. And really the future, I believe, of the workforce is going this direction. I don't know if it's ever really going to go back. There's so much information and research out there about how that traditional type of work schedule, it's gone. We don't believe it's ever going to really come back. And so having, like I said, that hybrid approach, we have been hearing it literally in every single interview. We hear it from candidates, no matter what position it is. And just their personal and family health, that's so important to people now. We hear that all the time on phone interviews. Okay, so why are you looking to leave your current position? Because my current employer does not support my personal situation, or they're forcing me to go back into the office, or I had X, Y, and Z happen. Like their values, the value of the candidate pool right now and the talent that is out there has completely changed. So going into these interviews and really just listening to what these candidates are going through, understanding what their desires are, understanding what their wants are, and then having to be flexible with your approach. That's really how this whole world has changed. So yeah, just to kind of bounce off of some of those things that we were just talking about.
And by the way, we love this local community. I love living here. I live in Cooperstown. So while we're hiring constantly people that are quite virtual, and in some cases they are, a flight away now, we still, if anybody ever wants to relocate, we always, welcome that and would encourage that. And we still have the preferred manor next door in New Berlin that we use as corporate housing. And so, we're always happy to like entertain people and bring them in. But we're lucky in that sense that we don't have to have people physically here so much anymore. But there is a real estate boom going on. A lot of people have purchased homes up here who want to get out of major metropolitan areas. So now might be a good time to encourage people to come to the country for like clean air, and we have water, and we have very low natural disasters here. We have a lot of snow, but we have a lot of beauty. So I think it might be a good time to, try to encourage people to come up, and particularly people who are in really expensive areas are always amazed how inexpensive our housing is here until they have to pay their electric bill in the winter with their heat. But so now might be a good time to try to get people to this area for sure.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions from anybody? What are people's thoughts, I guess? How is anybody interviewing right now and they're hearing some of these same requests by candidates, and how do you feel like you're going to approach that? Can anybody share their experiences there? I'd love to hear, like, what else is happening? We don't always hear what's happening in the local businesses. So I'd love to hear from you if you are going through interviews and just kind of what you're hearing.
I know here at Blue Ox, we are interviewing, we are hiring, and we kind of fall into one of those sectors like, okay, an HVAC technician, especially when we have customer appointments, we can't be as flexible. And we certainly have people who work in the office who did transition to work from home for a period of time. But we kind of pushed each other to say, well, how can we still support people who are not in a work from home position? And can we be a little bit more flexible with that? Whether it's, how can we support your family? Is it, scheduling you half an hour later so you can help with drop-offs and pickup, or, you can just help your partner have a good start to the day while they work from home. Just those little adjustments and kind of doing that on a personalized basis, I think went far in understanding that we're working from home to help keep you safe. You are the front line and the number one most important thing. So, this is to protect you too. I think work from home is also, attractive to a lot of people because there's that sense of, autonomy a little bit. I don't have to, have people check in or, engage in, the water cooler talk that maybe I don't need to. I'm more productive at home, or, my 15-minute break is I would rather throw in a load of laundry than take a walk around the block with, what I mean? Those types of things. So how can we still kind of give, our frontline people some of that aspect? We've tried to adapt the best we can, certainly. But that is a challenge we face just with the industry we're in. I would love, and I would encourage our technicians to take their lunch break and do a yoga session. That would be my favorite day in the world. That is not something they look for, but that is something that we started doing in the office too. I've got a yoga mat right, next to me here, and, our walking groups and stuff, but it's just, and we're lucky that we're not a huge corporation, where, we don't have 100 technicians. We, have, like 20. So it's easier to manage some of the, more personal needs, but that's done wonders for us, I think. So I would just encourage, every employer to try to push through some of that and work through managing those things. Cause, that was some feedback we got that's been really appreciated, even when things are very scheduled and structured and appointment oriented, is just seeing how you can help them out. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I'm glad that helped, having those little adjustments, and it sounds like they've really appreciated that. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful feedback. Anybody else that has maybe taken that same sort of approach and some of the feedback that they have heard?
Most of what I'm hearing is from the tourism industry, and they don't, for the most part, cannot work from home. They can't work remotely, but they are having a lot of problems getting help because, especially wait staff, restaurants have had to close because they can't get wait staff because they can sit home and make more money on unemployment. So that's a lot of what we're hearing from the tourism industry. And the tourism industry was hit really hard, but they're coming back really strong now, but they just can't get the help. They can't get the people. Nobody, a lot of those jobs are minimum wage jobs. They don't want to, if I can make, unemployment and 300 plus, why would I go look for a job? So that's kind of a little of what I'm hearing in the tourism industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's always been an issue. I mean, we're over in the Cooperstown area, so and tourism here is also seasonal, so it's not even year round. Right. So it's hard enough to find folks to fill those jobs, but then on a seasonal basis is even trickier. Yeah, same thing here. This town has suffered greatly, because of this. And that's a really hard sell when somebody says, well, I'm getting these checks, so why would I make the effort to go work somewhere and then put myself at risk too?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I know there's no good answer, but
yeah,
Just thought I'd share.
I know. Oh, other than we keep going back to restaurants and keep supporting our local restaurants.
Right. Yep.
Okay. All right. Anybody else that have any questions before we head off onto the next slide? No? All right. Well, here, we'll talk about this. So talent sourcing, just kind of that beyond the pandemic, is what we're experiencing, what we are noticing, what we're hearing. So pre-pandemic, you know, it was easy to get that word out there through newspapers, through radio ads, through in-person job fairs. I know we went to quite a few of them in our local community because of all the jobs that we did have people come on site for. Even the nature of interviews. Typically how we've operated, how a lot of businesses operated is sometimes you do like that first initial HR screen, typically like over the phone, and then you had them actually physically meet people in person. And so a lot of this human connection, face-to-face interaction, and then all of a sudden, boom, the pandemic happened, and now today everything is so virtual. We're all experiencing this. I mean, even right now, look at us, we're all virtual and going through this summit. So it's just like, what's happening now? And then what is really our future going to look like for trying to source and how to find talent? So now, like, newspapers are kind of, you know, out the door. Not a lot of people are really looking at newspapers to really find jobs, maybe for some very, very niche market type positions, but really newspapers, like, we have done so much data. When we have people apply, we ask them, how did you find out about this position? And they have a whole list of different options to choose from: newspaper, a radio ad, you know, Indeed, LinkedIn, just the preferred mutual website. And what we have really found to be the biggest trend is really online. The Indeed, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all these different platforms, these social media platforms, they are so important for getting that word out there, for advertising those jobs. Right now, we're seeing a mix of all of them for where people are finding out about our positions. If people are sharing those positions, our leaders are on social media more than ever, and they're out there sharing all these different positions on their LinkedIn pages. And so far, everybody that I've been asking, how did they find out about our position? A lot of them are saying Indeed. That seems to be a big driver in this area, and even remote positions. That's really how talent sourcing is going. It's all everybody with their cell phones. They're getting notifications popping up on their cell phones through all these different social media platforms about saying, which I just recently got one from Oneonta. It said, hey, you might be a good fit for this position. That's really how people are finding out about jobs. They are putting themselves out there. They're putting their resumes out there. They're putting their interests out there. And all these algorithms from all these different social media platforms are matching those keywords that are in people's profiles. What are they searching? And matching them to these different jobs on all these different types of social media platforms. And that's how people are now finding out about positions, you know, the paperless applications, the future of interviews, how everything is very much so virtual. And I believe this is really going to be kind of the future of how our world is going to be with talent sourcing. And even the social media presence of the company, which includes reviews, which includes what people in your company are posting, their Facebook pages, their Instagram pages, their LinkedIn pages. I actually just recently had a manager tell me they were not going to possibly pursue somebody because of their Facebook page, because they were posting all these different things on their Facebook, and it made them a little worried about their presence. we're not meeting these people in person now, so you don't always have that factor of what people, their facial expressions. That's how we really made a lot of our determination when it came to selecting a candidate. So now we're relying so much more on social media when it comes to sourcing, when it comes to hiring, and just understanding who that person is beyond that resume. And really even having somebody start with us. So I know it's going to be a little bit different for some different industries for having people begin employment. We have done everything virtual. We've been sending IT equipment to our candidates ahead of time. So while we're going through the whole pre-employment screening, we're actually sending them their IT equipment. We're sending them a whole welcome package with preferred mutual logoed items on them, like a coffee mugs and pens and things for their desk at home. And then we're having them connect with our IT team prior to even starting to make sure that everything is plugged into the right place and just make sure their computer is working. And then we've been actually conducting the HR orientation, IT orientations, all virtually through different resources we have in-house. Cisco Jabber, TeamShare, things like this right here, Zoom, WebEx, where we're sharing screens. This is really the future. And actually today, it was pretty funny. I had an onboarding session with a group of new hires that have been with us now about 7 to 8 months. And they stated, when they first started with us, they felt lonely. They felt like, am I just going to be sitting here in an empty room, nobody around me? They were feeling a little anxious. They were feeling a little scared. They were fearing the unknown. And am I going to be able to learn everything? And I'm not going to be able to just go to Sally's desk and ask her, hey, can you look at this for me? They had all these questions going on in their mind. And it was a really good eye-opener because, okay, what else can we share with those employees and those new hires right before they start with us? Because those are very practical fears. I would probably be fearing the same thing if I was starting in a virtual world during a pandemic. So just that connection with those new hires. And they felt so connected once they did actually physically start with us, because through all these different avenues, through all the different platforms that we have in-house, they did feel connected with their managers, with their teams, because their manager reached out to them, their team members reached out to them, they shared their screen like what we're doing right now so we can show you physically what we're talking about. And on the phone, we're seeing each other in person here on the Zoom call. This is really the future of how a lot of things are going to happen, and how new hires are really going to be starting with a lot of different companies, is really this kind of virtual world, and making things a little bit easier on people as they navigate through all these challenges that they are facing. And the reviews. So I wanted to get back to reviews with the social media presence. I actually had a candidate a couple weeks ago that said they read our reviews and they were going to actually withdraw their application because they did not feel we were the company for them, which really kind of made us kind of back up and go, whoa, okay, we need to look at our social media presence. We need to look at our reviews. This is something that people are doing. When you go out there on Amazon, you're looking for a product, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to read those reviews. You're going to see, does it have 4.5 stars? Does it have 5 stars? Or is it 3 stars? Because I'm not buying the one that's at 3 stars. That's what people are really looking for. So it is really a candidate-driven market. They are doing a lot of research on your company. So even though you might be out there on all these different avenues and you're doing all this talent sourcing, they're doing the same to you. They are out there, they're investigating you, they're looking at those reviews, Glassdoor, on Indeed, where you can leave company reviews. They're looking on Google. Google has where you can search a company and then you can see all those reviews about that company. There's so many different avenues that you really have to just be aware of, that awareness of your social media presence. And just making sure that you acknowledge them. That's the other thing. People want to make sure that if they do see a bad review out there, if you can acknowledge that review, sometimes you can leave a kind of like a comment underneath that review and just say, thank you for bringing this to our attention. You know, we will investigate this. We will research this. We want to correct this. Then people are a little bit more aware that you're taking action. So that social media presence is huge, because not only are you investigating those employees and trying to find the best employee for your company, they are doing the same with your company. So kind of the future of talent sourcing has changed tremendously, especially right now, how we talked about earlier. People's values have changed. They want to make sure that if they join a company, that they're going to join a company that is family oriented, that they feel like they're going to be supported, they're going to be encouraged, they're going to feel engaged with that company. So they're doing as much research into companies, probably more now than ever. So I just talked a lot there. I want to take a little bit of a break and see if anybody had any questions. No questions.
Yeah, I think the social media is a great, great, but not only for you looking at employees, but also for employees to look at you. You're right. It's so huge. Nobody looks at anything right now without looking at reviews and seeing what other people say. And I think most people balance good comments with negative comments, but I know personally, I always put much more weight on the companies that respond to negative comments. So even if it's like a hotel and somebody had something bad to say and the hotel came back, well, I'm sorry, we were under construction, or I'm sorry that, you know what I mean? Like that means much more to me. So yeah, I 100% agree with you on the social media aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and
it's hard because as a company, you don't want to be hostage to these reviews, but they really do matter. And so sometimes it's just, a one-off or a disgruntled person, or, sometimes people are just, it's like a therapeutic thing and they hit send too quickly and then they feel bad that they put that review there, but they did. So yeah, if you do a little damage control and you explain that, I mean, I love working at Preferred. We're not perfect. I mean, everybody has issues and we're not the right fit for everybody. So if there's a way you can, explain those things, that's helpful. But yeah, people are absolutely these are more informed candidates than I've ever seen before. And not only are they looking at your company, they are, as Andy said, they're looking at every manager, every leader. They're going to your personal LinkedIn profiles. They want to see if they're coming in with good company. They want to see the type of manager you might be. So they're very much interviewing us as much as we're interviewing them. I think those days are over of an employer being a little arrogant in that way, saying, you should be lucky to work here, and we'll decide if we want to hire you. It's the candidates are high caliber candidates, talented candidates are driving the market right now, I think.
Yeah,
and just the ease of the application. Oh, sorry, Andy.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the one difference too. I'm laughing now thinking about, like, we used to not long ago have like huge paper applications. We made the application process so laborious, and it was a lot of work, right? And then people would come on site, we'd give them a tour, and that was wonderful. So it's very different now in this virtual environment. They're not seeing our facility. They're not seeing the location. They're not meeting people in person. And they are applying to lots of companies at the same time, and they want it quick. They want to do it really fast. They're applying on phones now. So the quickest application that you can offer somebody all online, I think that the better, return you'll get with candidates. You're going to yield a better result, I think.
Mm-hmm. So important.
So we just have a couple minutes left. I don't know if you had any other slides or any last minute questions. This is a great conversation, so I hate to speed through the end of it, but I just want to give you a chance to have any final thoughts or final questions.
No, those are really only the only slides we had, because we weren't sure who the audience was. So we thought, well, we'll be ready if it's candidates or employers or local business owners or whoever it is. But this is just a conversation that we're having constantly. We're always putting together little task forces about this, like, what are we going to do? We are learning every day what candidates want, and we're pivoting all the time to try to like meet these demands. So it's, it's been an interesting year.
Well, I definitely think it's a conversation that needs to keep happening. So it's, you know, it's so important when we think about our future and who we're attracting, how we're attracting them. I mean, it all goes together. That's why events like today are so important. So I thank you both for your time and sharing what you've been doing at Preferred. I'm excited to hear that you've taken what you've learned and you're doing something with it and you see this as a future. I think that's one of the biggest things, is take the lessons learned and find a way to implement it. So thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
All right.